Wow, a whole box of Kleenex. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Hold that thought. Keep that heart open. My name is Tom Poole, and I am a licensed spiritual practitioner here at Light on the Mountains, and I welcome all of you here physically and those who are joining us at home. And I ask you all to, as I say, keep those hearts open and to empty your minds and just take a moment and be aware, find that space of receptivity, and just take a deep intentional breath with me. And relax into that breath. Ground into your space. And I ask you to feel and know your connection to the one divine source, to all that is, the presence that is right here, right now, surrounds us, is within us, and is as us. The very breath that we take. And as we gather on this late fall day, I recognize the powerful presence of that one God, that one source, the omnipotent, omnipresent, creative force that is the source of this wonderful snow, this wonderful, beautiful valley, and all that is. And I know that this source, this God, this creation is here, is present in individualized forms in so many myriad of ways, and as you and as me, as all that is. And it is from this grace-filled place that I give thanks for today's service, for John, for our musicians, for the Leadership Council, for all the volunteers who help throughout the day, throughout the week, for our practitioners. I give thanks, and I ask as we operate today in this mind, we know that all the wisdom, all the power, all the peace, and all the joy and love that ever was is with us right here and right now. And that we leave these minds open and our hearts open to new ideas, that Spirit is active within us. It is forever new, ever new, each moment, vibrant, fresh. And that these impressions are received as they are necessary, and we let this permeate our entire consciousness. And in this gratitude, together we respond, and so it is. Okay, so I brought a little book to read. Put your ears on for a few minutes as I find my chapter. Here it comes. I can feel it. I've got all these stickers in here and not the one that I need. Okay. Today's reading is from the book Science of Mind by our founder and spiritual philosopher Ernest Holmes. And it is from chapter 10, which is on faith. And I'm going to read a few of the subchapters. The first one is always a power. Faith has been recognized as a power throughout the ages, whether it be faith in God, faith in one's fellow men, in oneself, or in what one is doing. The idea that faith has only to do with our religious experience is a mistake. Faith is a faculty of the mind that finds its highest expression in the religious attitude. But always the man who has faith in his own ability accomplishes far more than the one who has no confidence in himself. Those who have great faith have great power. Why is it that one man's prayers are answered while another's remain unanswered? It cannot be that God desires more good for one person than another. It must be that all persons, in their approach to reality, receive results, not because of what they believe in, but because of their belief. Faith is an affirmative mental approach to reality. I'm going to jump down to understanding faith. We wish a faith based on the knowledge that there is nothing to fear. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The thought of faith molds the undifferentiated substance and brings into manifestation the thing that was fashioned in the mind. This is how faith brings our desires to pass. Let me read that again. Faith molds the undifferentiated substance and brings into manifestation the thing that was fashioned in the mind. So when we use our creative imagination and strong faith, it will create for us out of the one substance, whatever we have formed in thought. In this way, man becomes a co-creator with God. There will never be an end to any of the eternal verities like truth, love, beauty. There will never be an end to God, nor to any of the attributes which are co-eternal and coexistent with God. If we are wise, we shall cultivate a faith in these realities. This is not a difficult task, but a thrilling experience. That just gave me chills. Spiritual substance is all around us, waiting to be formed. Thus we see what Jesus meant when he said, "And I say unto you, ask, and it shall be given unto you." The law must work in compliance with our demand. The divine urge within us is God's way of letting us know that we should push forward and take that which is awaiting our demand. If the good were not already ours in the invisible supply, it would be impossible for us to procure it in any manner. He openeth his hand and satisfieth the desire of every living creature. One more. This is the technique of acquiring faith. One cannot be a good student of the science of mind who is filled with fear and confusion. He must keep himself in a state of equilibrium, in a state of poise, peace, and confidence, in a state of spiritual understanding. By spiritual understanding, I have my mother's nose. It is not meant anything strange or unnatural, but merely that the belief in goodness must be greater than any apparent manifestation of its opposite. It is this science of faith we're seeking to uncover, a definite technique that will conduct our minds through a process of thought, if necessary, to that place which the sublime minds of all ages have reached by direct intuition. There is no one who believes more in faith, more in prayer, or more in the necessity of the divine will being done than he who practices daily the science of mind. How often are we supposed to do this? Daily. He has relieved his mind of the morbid sense that the will of God can be the will of suffering. For if there were a suffering God, and if we are eternal beings, then we should suffer through all eternity. But a suffering God is an impossibility. We suffer because we are not in both conscious and subjective communication with the affirmative side of the universe. All human misery is a result of ignorance, and nothing but knowledge can free us from this ignorance and its effect. It is wonderful to contemplate the mental attitude of people who are not afraid to believe their prayers will be answered, and are not afraid to say, "I know." We shall all arrive at this same assurance, this perfect faith, in such degree as we cease contemplating the universe as opposed to itself, as we cease having the will to do or be that which is contrary to the universal good. There is nothing in the universal order that denies the individual's good or self-expression, so long as such self-expression does not contradict the general good, does not contradict goodness itself. There is nothing in the universe that denies us the right to be happy if our happiness does not deny or interfere with the general good. The universe remains unlimited, though the whole world has suffered a sense of limitation. We should be careful not to divide our mental house against itself. Having announced the law of liberty, we must not deny it. When we shall all know the truth, then ways and means and methods will be found for the freedom of all. The mold of acceptance is the measure of our experience. The mold of acceptance is the measure of our experience. The infinite fills all molds and forever flows into new and greater ones. Within us is the unborn possibility of limitless experience. Ours is the privilege of giving birth to it. And so it is. So, thank you for allowing me that indulgence. And now, if you will join me, our affirmation for December is on your insert. And we will say this together. I embrace the consciousness of positive change and transformation, knowing it contributes to the greater good of all.
I'm a little jealous because when I got up here and said, "Good morning," I heard, "Good morning." And then Tom gets up, "Good morning." "Good morning!" What up with that, y'all? I don't really have a real thought of the day, but I did want to share with you all that a while back, it's been a little while, we lost our cat. We didn't lose her, she passed away. And it just felt like a little soul was missing in the house. We also have a dog. So KO said on Wednesday, I think we need a cat. And I said, no, I'm done with cats. Absolutely not. I named everything that's bad about cats. And so that was on Wednesday. Thursday morning, I was up from KO. We both had to go to Twin that day, but I was up. And I just started thinking, maybe a cat. Maybe a kitten. We've always done rescues, but we've never gotten a kitten. So I thought, maybe a kitten. And it's probably not season for kittens. So I'll just call the shelter. No cats, though. Ever again. Period. But maybe. Well, I called and I said, I looked at their site and I didn't see any kittens. Phew. So I just called to say, I know that y'all get them in periodically, and just thought I'd put my name down for maybe looking at kittens in the future. She said, well, you're in luck. They have 31 kittens about ready to go to the shelter. Within, she said, So I went, okay. And she said, just keep an eye on the website. When they're ready for homes, I'll give you a call, but you can see. So I said, okay. Well, 2 hours later, for some reason, I looked at that site again. Two little kittens were available. And I thought, oh, man. Well, I read, said, and it's 2 for 1 day. We have 2 kittens now. Yeah. And they are a delight to be around. They are adorable. They're so affectionate with us already. My dog couldn't be bothered. There's already always a little initiation time with cats and dogs. And one of the cats is totally fine. Daisy's, our dog, totally fine. The other cat is like, and then falls asleep on the couch. So that, and with the snow, I love this time of year. There's a newness to me. A lot of people dread it. I love the first snows. I love Christmas holidays. And now I was up really early this morning watching those 2 kittens fly around the house. And I was so happy just to be here and experience new love, new life, and being together. It's all about that.
Thank you, Tom. Well, more people braved the first snow on the road than I thought. We're so whiny when we get to that, isn't it? Oh, it's snowy. Well, we figure it out. So here's a new spiritual law. There's no such thing as just looking at cats and dogs. There's only getting cats and dogs. And, yeah, like us. Let's just go look at the puppies. And if you want to see how that turned out, go to my office. Will the Wonder Dog is taking his Sunday morning nap as we speak. So, happy December. December is a great time for many reasons. And it brings up the larger topic that Tom helped us with faith. December is full of larger-than-life stories. And I don't necessarily believe that those stories are historically accurate. And it's up to you to figure out what level of belief you have in the historical accuracy. We have Hanukkah, the 7 days of Hanukkah starting in a week, and we have, of course, Christmas and all the stories that evolve around there. I don't think they were meant to be historically accurate in the way in the 21st century that we look at truth. I think they dealt in a different type of truth. And so during December, I traditionally will pop into little aspects of the stories here and there, even though I will not necessarily do it today particularly. But the larger than idea to look at is that they offer us an invitation to elevate our sense of awe and belief and wonderment and what we are willing to believe is possible for ourselves and the world. And of course, it's delivered through choirs of angels and all these things that I don't think any of us think are going to happen in our lives. But the whole point is to push the belief meter a little bit further. In a sense, not so much a belief in something or an external power that will fulfill or, as we say, answer your prayer in suspending the laws of physics, but that there is a different route of discovery when we open up to the aspect of awe and belief. That we say we co-create in the world here, meaning we have to do our parts as human beings. We aren't just bystanders that put in our invoice and we get things. That actually in this faith, or as I'm talking about today, leaps of faith, it's not so much about how we've been taught to expect an answer to our desires or intentions or our prayers, where we think, well, I have an absence. Isn't that usually when you've been taught to pray? There's something missing. And so I need to call out the Calvary or whatever, or God, spirit guides, or whatever you want to do, or the universe, and say that I need something to come to my aid to fill an absence. Isn't that really what it is? Have you ever just prayed just for fun? No, I mean, really. I mean, I'm the best prayer you can is just to be silent in gratitude. That's actually is the best that it gets. But honestly, people will stop me in Atkinson's. Can you put me on the prayer list? You know, they don't actually shake me, but sometimes I feel shaken. And they never stop me and say, I am so grateful today. It's like, this happened today. You know, and it's like, and somehow there's this belief that I have the special line to whoever answers these prayers, and that if I put it in, it'll happen. Like, again, there's an absence here. Something has happened. So part of this idea of faith or leap of faith is to get away from this idea of there being absence. That, yes, there might be things that we would like to have, would like to invite to have, But first of all, that we are always coming from a place of it is always perfect, whole, and complete, regardless of how it looks. And to come from that as opposed to, I have an absence. And just doesn't that energetically just feel a little bit different? I mean, we have been so trained to recognize absence. You could turn on the TV, and within 10 minutes, you can have a whole list of things that are absent from our experience in the earth or things that we'd like to have happen. So looking at it a different way, or faith, or a leap of faith, first of all, it's not about getting something. It's about a shift in consciousness and growth and understanding that you can become a person who's able to accept something that you may not have right now. That makes sense. So it's not an order fulfillment. Your prayer, intentions, wishes are about you showing up differently over possibly a period of time when you have a state of consciousness or vibration at which that thing you're seeking is something that you can now handle. Sometimes that road is 10 minutes, sometimes it's 10 years, depending on what it is. So we have to stop thinking of, I need to get something and I can just stand here and read a book while it comes. And so the question in a leap of faith is, first and foremost, how do I have to change and shift? That's the first order of the day. And it might be quite a long road of discovery depending on what it is. So leaps of faith gives us an opportunity to understand what I'll call a dual nature. We really don't have a dual nature, but we sometimes believe that we do. So we are both humans, and we are divine, spiritual beings. And we've been trained again and taught to think that we're having a human moment, and after this is over, we'll go back to being spiritual beings, whatever that looks like. And I don't have the inside scoop of what that is. And we often think they're very separate experiences. But actually, they are one and the same. But there's still a little twist of a difference of how we have to learn how to cope with them or to work with both these natures. So on the level of the human, as we say, how do I change, how do I grow, how do things come into my life, the human level is a path of process and discovery. On the human level, we don't just have like a download. So we have all gone to school or taken a course of study or been trained to do something or took an art class that lasted a few weeks. Haven't we all at some point? When you showed up the first day, what you were hoping to have happen, you weren't able to have happen yet. Like I was thinking this day. So when I left high school, I put off college and I thought, well, I need to find a way to earn money first. And so I went and learned how to cut people's hair. And I remember the first day of school, we had this whole kit of scissors and stuff and all that. And the last thing you would have wanted me to do that first day is just to have at it with the scissors on your hair. It's like there were diagrams, and it looked easy if you just went step by step, but there was a process of discovery, not only in that 10-month training, but beyond when I was working professionally, that I had to go through. As human beings, we are on a path of discovery. We are always evolving in our knowledge, how we look at things. So that's how this works here in the human form. We are usually in some sort of process. But our spiritual selves are on a completely different track. And you know a little bit about this, but we can't quite understand it being so, because it sounds too good to be true. On the level of spirit, or our connection with the divine, and we are connected to all things, there is no process of discovery. You just know. Again, it really is like plugging in to everything there is in the universe, and you just know. Again, there's no first day of school, like the first day in spirit. I don't know if there's like a orientation class or anything when you kind of leave body. Who knows? Maybe there is. There's not like that first day that you get to know a little bit. You instantaneously are connected to all that there is. There's no process of learning. And I'm really fascinated as I've heard that idea reflected in different near-death experiences, which I find fascinating, and I don't say they're true or not true. But I've heard multiple people report back that they said that wherever they went, again, I don't know the process, they had an understanding that they knew everything. And it wasn't like big-headed thing, you just know. It's just like now, I know there's people in the room. I didn't have to go through a process here. I just had to open my eyes, and I saw you. And what is interesting in those stories, each time they said when they return, they have a memory of knowing everything. They just didn't know everything anymore. In fact, they didn't bring anything back. It was so interesting that I knew all the secrets of the universe, and it was like so simple. And now it's like, I can't even begin to know what it was. So it was just being plugged in. And so on the level of spirit, it is pure knowing and being just immersed in it, and it's instant knowledge. So how do we work that here? And how does that fit in with leaps of faith? And how does that fit in with what we call spiritual practice and what prayer is really about? So I believe part of our growth here in human beings and the path of discovery is to invite that experience of knowing. Doesn't that sound good? And I don't know if we have like instant like plugins, or maybe that is possible. So we often talk about intuition. Didn't you at least once in your life just like know something? Maybe you were looking for an answer and you just were in the right space that you just knew what the next step was. That you didn't go through a process. I've done this. I mean, I'm not saying it's available on demand. It's like surprises me when I just know. Like you're thinking, what should be my next step in life, or even next step in this week, or I have this project, what would be the next step? And besides in spite of yourself, you were out of the way, and it just came to you. You didn't have to do a Google search. You didn't have to call a friend. Just somehow, you just intuitively knew. Well, what you did in that moment is that you did get out of your way, and you connected with that part of yourself that just knows. And that is so difficult for us to understand that we can grow that ability. We can invite it in larger measures, and that it is always there for us to draw on, but yet our human experience of being in discovery kind of keeps us from that really handing ourselves over to that. So we have a process, a spiritual practice that many of you have heard of, that you've participated here, that's called visioning. Basically, it is the opposite prayerful experience that you have been raised as a child. You were raised as a child, again, to ask for stuff. Your list to Santa. Aren't we making our list to Santa, or whomever wants to fill in as Santa this month? Visioning is saying to the universe, what do you think should be on this list? What do you think should be on the top of this list? And if you are in a major point where you're just really thinking over your life, usually 2 or 3 times are doing like a major overhaul, major remodeling. And rather than like rack your brains, go into a visioning state and start the process of, what do you think? What do you think the next best thing? And really what you're doing is you're not connecting to, the special vision angel up in the cloud somewhere. You are opening up to that part of yourself that knows already. The answer is already there. So a visioning process is saying, I am going to connect into this idea that already exists and open up to it. And it is something that we can develop. But the first thing that comes, the roadblock to that, is that we can confuse vision with our big ego self. Haven't you ever convinced yourself that you just needed to do something, and maybe there was that still small voice that said, you really shouldn't? The really shouldn't voice was actually your true higher self, and the thing that says, let's just run through anyway, was, well, not so high self. Let's not have hierarchy here. It's like, well, a part of yourself that needed to consider a little bit more deeply. And so part of that is to connect to that larger idea and begin, since we are as human beings, the process of discovery to get there. Because often if you get a true vision or a little hint or intuition, we think, let's just go for it right now. And sometimes you can. But like I said, You say, here's this great idea, or this thing, or this transformation, and you are not possibly yet the person who can embody that yet. So your leap of faith is, it's not like there is a disembodied spirit that will deliver this to me. Your leap of faith is knowing that if you, in earnest and sincerity, take your steps one at a time, that you will be led on a path that you do become and expand to that person who can accept that larger idea. And it's not just about, again, magically materializing, choirs of angels. Sometimes there's great ease in that path, and sometimes there's great frustration in that path. That you have to be willing to take the steps. So last night, we watched the latest Indiana Jones movie. And I've really even lost track of what it's called. But my favorite one, and there's a reason I'm going here, was The Last Crusade. Because the last big piece on it was about leaps of faith. That he needed to get to this cave that had the Holy Grail. In other words, the actual goblet that Jesus supposedly drank from. But the Holy Grail is, again, it's this symbolic thing. The thing, you in perfection. And so here, there's this big old thing that he has to go through, but this last leap of faith. The cave is over there. He's here. You remember this? And there is a chasm that goes down like forever. And so the leap of faith is, well, if I truly believe that there is a disembodied spirit that is following here, I should be able to step here and magically be lifted across. I mean, isn't that how we are raised to think of leaps of faith? Well, and so he's like, well, I guess I'm in for this. And he does put his foot down, and he doesn't fall. Remember this? Well, then they show you it's an optical illusion. We have optical delusions all the time, at least I do. And there's actually a land bridge there that you can't really see. The whole point being, you have to be willing to step forward, but you are the one that has to take the step. There's not going to be magic angel wings that come and take you across. And he had to become to that person that he could on some level sense that there was a road forward if he was willing to take the step. Again, no magic at all. Just the willingness to step at a time, to see an option that you may have been in a state of consciousness that you couldn't yet see it. In fact, one of the prayers that or affirmations I do more often than not is just, help me see the open door that I can't yet see. It's there. They're all there. I may be in a state of consciousness that I can't quite perceive it yet. So what are the next step in this? So, leap of faith stories are great, especially when they're in the rearview mirror, aren't they? I've got some great leap of faith stories where, when I really thought it was all over, and it showed up. Don't we have those? And we love those stories. I love those stories. But when you're in the middle of a leap of faith, occurrence, and we always are to some degree. Again, we always have the big ones, big change in life. But we have, a constant series of these. But it's great to look in the past, but when you're in it, it can seem like, well, maybe this is the time this doesn't work. I'm still digging in with looking to connect with that intuitive aspect of myself that just knows, and I don't seem to be getting the answers yet. And I am really tempted to do something kind of ridiculous that I know that won't work, but it'll at least make me feel like I'm doing something about it. So regardless of what timeline you're on, the first thing is to always be, in a sense, of spiritual and even human integrity. And to not go into magical thinking leap of faith stories. One of my favorite stories several years ago, a student in one of our classes here was very upset that they had a significant check bounce at the bank. I said, what, you make a math problem? She says, no, I just thought I'd take a leap of faith that Spirit would show me how to get the money before it would hit the bank. We've all tried that at some point, haven't we? It never works. Let me just tell you, if you think that's a leap of faith, it never works. It absolutely never does. But the whole point is, again, living in integrity, you don't give over to magical thinking. There's no bounce check angel floating out there whose job is just to make these checks right. That, again, you need to change in your receptivity. So my advice to that person is that to go through a process of just growth where you're looking at other opportunities to receive, that you don't go step out of integrity to write a hot check and just hope it works out. And that can be difficult, especially one of our big things with things happening in our lives is evolved around money, isn't it? How do I get the money? How will it happen? I have this great idea, but how will the supply come? And actually, since we have such a messed up mind in this country about money, that's often where our lessons show up. It's interesting when I started the School of Ministry, which was for me a true, this is what you need to do. But the thing was, how do I get the money? And it's so easy to do in any leap of faith story. The ends justifies the means, isn't it? Like the lady, I'll write a hot check. That'll show God, whomever, that I'm faithful. It's like, no, it didn't work out that way. It's funny, and since money was a real particular thing for me at that time, what I got through my own guidance was, okay, you can go and give the credit card for the first semester, but if you haven't grown in consciousness where that is paid off by the second semester, you need to drop out. And that was the rules. And it was a scary rule. I mean, it really was, because it'd be so easy. Again, the ends justifies the means. I want to do this great thing in the world, come to light in the mountains or whatever. Of course it's okay if I'm ridiculous in my finances. But those were the rules. And so if you're looking how to step forward in your life, that's part of this opening up in your vision. Ask yourself, what are the guidelines here? And I guarantee you there'll be at least one that you don't want. One that you're willing to argue about. Well, maybe I don't have to do that. Maybe I can just do this a little bit. But you'll know that it's a true visionary rule because, again, you won't like it. Isn't that a terrible thing to approach spirituality? Yeah, you'll know it's true when it comes to it and you don't like it. Because really what it is, it's working against the fiber of who you are now to elevate you to who you are seeking to become in that elevated consciousness. And part of that is saying goodbye and releasing some of these things that we do at this level. So there is always something involved in an elevation of consciousness where you're like, oh, I have to do that. There's always something. And I was really amazed how I financially got through that 3-year program, which cost about $20,000 and did not go into debt. And there was a couple times I thought, I'm going to have to, not drop out, suspend my educational process. Yes, doesn't that sound nice? I may have to suspend my educational process. But I never did. Because there was that thing, maybe you don't have, okay, maybe not paid by the end of the semester, maybe between mid-semester next time. It's like, no, the rules. That came to me. And I was able to figure it out. So it's not always about money. It's always about that one thing that you think, ooh, I'm just can't let go of in this leap of faith. It's kind of like my little comfort pillow or something. It's my go-to dysfunction. Yes, this is my go-to dysfunction. I don't want to give this up. And there's always a release of a go-to dysfunction and a growth of consciousness that leads us in the process of becoming something expanded and leap of faith. So think about this week. And getting back to this idea of knowing as we close today, one thing you may or may not have noticed as we do prayer here, either through a practitioner like Tom or me at the end of the Sunday service, is that we never make statements in our prayer that are conditional. We always use words like, I know, and I accept. And we always make statements in the present tense. That the human side of me may not quite be on board yet with knowing, but the spiritual aspect of me is. So when I finish in prayer today, notice as I do prayer for me and for us collectively, it's from a sense of knowing. Or at least saying I know, even if I may not be there yet. You start with the verbiage. So let's just experiment with this right now and add some within yourself as we go along. So let's start here right now. And I know that the power and presence of the divine spirit, the universe, is everywhere. It is all things present. It is within all things, as it is within me. I know that it is within each person right here, right now, at all times. And I know for each of us here today that regardless of the circumstances that are happening in our life, be we judge them as good, bad, or indifferent, that I know that we have a deeper connection than to them, that we open up to whatever gift of learning they have to give us, and we expand in consciousness in this knowing that we absolutely are in tune to the next steps of our lives. We release the human anxiety and fear that sometimes come along the road. We simply know. We know all things are possible, and we allow ourselves to be vessels of that spiritual truth right here and now. Especially in this time, this month of, let's say, month of miracles, where we simply know. So in this, I express my gratitude and thanksgiving, and I let this go. As we say, into the creative force of the universe, I let go of my human attachment. I let go of my human past belief that it may not be possible, and I embrace the idea of I know as I let it go. And so it is.